So essentially there are 6 screenplay elements that you should know: scene heading, action, character, parenthetical, dialogue, and transition. Once you know these 6 elements, you can read and write almost any script. So let's understand what are they and how to use them in the screenplay. So we'll start with the scene heading, which is, by the way, also called slug line. It is used to describe the location where the scene is happening. For example, we'll take this room. If we'll have to describe this room, how will we describe it within the screenplay? Int room day. Int is because it is happening inside. If it would be happening somewhere outside, we could have used ext, which is exterior. In our case, because the scene is happening within the room, so we'll be writing int and then where the scene is actually taking place. It could be room, it could be bedroom, or it could be cafe, hotel, anything. And then comes the time when it is happening. Not the exact time, but is it day, it is night, it is dusk, or a dawn. We can also write afternoon here, but I'll generally avoid using specific time until and unless it is necessary to the story. For example, you have a scene where the character is having lunch and something major happens in the story and you want to specify that this event occurred while the character was having a lunch. In such cases, afternoon is necessary. Otherwise, you can simply write day. Assume if this scene is happening outside at the beach, how would we describe that? Exterior, beach, day. So in this, the scene is happening exterior, outside. That's why we are using ext. And we'll use it int for interior, ext for exterior. And the place, where is it happening? It is happening at the beach. So we'll be writing beach. And then what time is it? It's a daytime or nighttime. We can also write night if the scene is happening at nighttime. Now just take an example if the scene is happening inside a car. Interior, exterior, car, day. We can also do int car day, and it's perfectly clear. See, one thing we have to understand in the screenplay, that we don't really have to hold on to the technicalities of it. The important thing in the screenplay is to provide clarity and consistency. So if you are saying int car day, it is also understandable. There is nothing wrong with that. But then every time within that screenplay, at least be consistent. So IE, by the way, is also used in scenes where the character is moving from one place to another. You can say IE, interior, exterior, because the character is moving within a scene. Now let's move on. We'll start with the scene int room day. Also remember, you don't really have to specify it's a room. It is also an apartment, so you can also say int apartment day, and there is nothing wrong with that. So like I said, it has to be clear, it has to be consistent. That's what we need to focus in the screenplay. The second important element is action. So if we'll have to describe the action, it would be like a man types on his laptop. Any description in the room you think would be essential to the story, you can add that description within the story. For example, there is a lamp behind us. A lamp is placed on a table behind him. Now, let's say another person enters the room. We would say man 2 enters the room. So when man 2 enters the room, he says some dialogue. Let's say man 2, you still here? Now, first of all, I'm not telling you right now what are the formatting, why man 2 is coming in the center and not to the left or the right, and why dialogues are coming in a certain way, because these are the formattings, industry standard formattings that we'll discuss later in the video. But let's just focus on how to write the screenplay. Now we have covered 4 essential elements: scene heading or a slug line, action, character, dialogue. Now there are 2 more elements that are left: parenthetical and transition. Parenthetical is a tricky thing. It's a sweet spot. You shouldn't overdo it because it is information that you are providing to your actor. How to deliver a dialogue. The reason I'm saying you shouldn't be overdoing it is because usually actors don't like when they are being told how to do certain action until and unless it is essential to the story again. For example, man 2 enters the room and he says, "You're still here." And he does something like hand over head. "You're still here." So you can type hand over head. But is it essential to the story? Can he not do some other action? Can he not be just surprised you're still here? So if hand over head is not that important, shall we write it? I don't think so. But there's very important information that we are trying to convey here. That is of disappointment, or probably you wanna say that man 2 is surprised to see man 1, which is let's say man 1. Man 2 is surprised to see man 1 because a new person entering the room and either he is disappointed or surprised. It is essential to the story. He was not expecting this guy to be here. So you shouldn't be writing the action, what he is doing, where his hands are, until and unless it is essential to the story, of course. You should write the expression of it. Here, in this case, I'll go with disappointment or surprised. I think surprised would be better. So I hope you understand parenthetical. Like I said, it's a sweet spot and you shouldn't be overdoing it. I have read so many scripts where the writer has expressed everything that they are imagining or probably visualizing while writing the script, and they have even written every single cue to the actor within the parenthetical, and it breaks the flow of the script. You have to understand one thing, that screenplay are for the readability purpose. Audience may not read it, but within the industry, people read the screenplay to be able to perform their work. So if screenplay is not crisp, if it is not helping you to visualize it, and if it is just with unnecessary information or duplicate information or with unnecessary parenthetical, you may find it hard to capture people's interest in your script. So don't overdo it. Alright, so next in line is transition. Transitions are mainly used when we are moving from one scene to another. Let's see how. In this example, we have 3 scenes. Scene 1, Scene 2, Scene 3. And we have transition between every 2 scenes. Cut to is between Scene 1 and Scene 2. Back to is between Scene 2 and Scene 3. Now, does that mean we need to have transition between every 2 scenes every time? No. In this particular case, these transitions are serving a specific purpose. Let's see what. Here we have used cut to because scene 1 is unfinished, and we are abruptly moving on to the next scene. And then with the help of back to transition, we are coming back to the first scene and finishing our conversation. So what are we trying to achieve with this transition here? Well, first and foremost, we are trying to establish a non-linear structure, the flow. So transitions are mainly used to establish the flow, pace, mood, and tone of the movie. Now I'll show you another way of doing the same scene but without any transition. Let's just remove cut to, back to, and move this third scene and merge it with the first scene, which anyways was a continuation of it. Now we have only 2 scenes, scene 1, scene 2. Now in this case, we are finishing the scene 1 and moving on to the next scene. So we don't need a transition. So I repeat again, transitions are not required every time you are moving from one scene to another. It is only required when you are establishing a certain pace, mood, tone, or flow of the movie. Let me just show you what are the other transitions that can be used within the screenplay. Now these are some of the transitions that you can use depending on how you want your story to flow. Cut to we have discussed. Fade in is used whenever we are opening a scene. It is not a mandatory thing, it's completely optional. Doesn't mean that every time you're opening a scene you have to use fade in. Similarly, fade out is used to close the scene. Fade to is not very common. It is generally used when you're fading your scene to something solid, like some color, blue, purple, yellow. Dissolve to when you're merging 2 scenes, where one scene is fading out and another scene is fading in. Back to we have discussed. Match cut, jump cut, smash cut. These are the editing terms, and if you know what they are, you will be able to use them in your screenplay. Just to give you a little bit example of that, match cut is when we are merging one shot from scene 1 to another shot. A great example of that would be 2001 Space Odyssey, where an ape throws a bone in the air and it transitions into a space station. Fade to black is used when you are fading your scene to a black screen. It is generally used when you are ending one sequence and starting a new one. For example, if your movie has multiple chapters, after every chapter you can use fade to black. Cut to black is used when you are abruptly cutting your scene to a black screen. So with this we have covered transition and therefore part 2 of the video, screenplay elements.